Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickerson, good morning.
Good morning, Rod. Great to be chatting to you again.
You got some more citizens in the great area of Dubbo.
I do get really excited about citizenship ceremonies. I only get to do really a bit of ceremonial formality at the very end of the process. I'm not really involved in the process, but I like to be the one there at the end because people are so excited. They've usually been in Australia for, minimum 5 years. It seems like some have been in Australia for a lot longer than that. But it's a real buzz in the room. They've got family and friends. They're excited about joining this great nation. And I get excited, Rod, because when they left their country, and that's a big decision in itself, they had a couple of hundred countries to choose from. Then when they came to Australia, out of that choice, they had 7.6 million square kilometres, and they chose our little 7,536 square kilometre patch of dirt on this particular nation. So that's pretty exciting for me from Dubbo, from Australia. So I get pretty excited about it all. But we had 38 new citizens join, 15 different countries they came from, and that's really changed dramatically. If I go back 12 years ago when I was first doing citizenships, we had people mainly from the UK, a few New Zealanders, maybe Canadians and Americans, and that was the bulk of it. Now, we had people last week from India and Nigeria and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Zimbabwe and, there was someone from the UK as well. So it's almost a minority. It's a bit of a surprise when you see someone from the UK as opposed to many years ago, it was lots of people from the UK. So exciting day for them as well. It's been a journey for them to get to this particular point. And I love to talk to people afterwards and find out what brought them to here, what the process was.
It is wonderful. I was recently talking with the federal member for Parks, Mark Colton, and he was at a ceremony where there was folks in Gunnedah, this was, and the mayor was telling him there's now 17 nations or people from 17 nations living in that city. Yeah,
that certainly has changed a lot. And Mark, obviously our federal member as well, he comes along to citizenships whenever he can. He didn't make it to the one last week, but it's great when he's there as well. It adds a bit of formality to the whole process. But no, it's a really exciting day.
Yeah, wonderful for our nation to greet these new people.
Indeed.
Now, and some of them might come through city-sister relationships.
They can do that. We've actually had some interesting relationships that have come out of this process. We've had a sister city in Japan called Minakamo for over 25 years now. And part of that process has been an exchange program, student exchange program. We have students around about years 9 and 10 go over from Dubbo to Minakamo. They spend about 10 days over there, and we have the same that comes in reverse. Now, of course, there was a little thing called a pandemic that popped up and threw a bit of a spanner in the works for a few years, but we've started the process again this year. We advertised for applications. They go in the September school holidays, but we only have 10 spots, unfortunately, so 10 students from here go across. We have 2 chaperones that go across, and we had 34 applications for those 10 spots. So obviously there's a bit of pent-up demand there, and people are pretty excited about it. I didn't sit on that committee, luckily, to go and choose those 10 students because I'm sure it would have been a tough job. And the people I spoke to afterwards said they could have taken all 34. They were all incredibly high standards. So disappointing for 24 people, very exciting for 10 people, but also great to see there's still a huge amount of interest in that program.
I want someone from the media to go with them to report back.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it, Rod? No, unfortunately we're all okay for that.
Damn. What's happening with the local government conference?
Well, we've got that coming up again in November this year. This is the annual conference where you essentially have Local Government New South Wales, our peak body for all 128 councils across the state. And there's a conference each year, and typically you'll have, like a normal conference, people doing presentations, a bit of networking going on, and you have a debate over various motions to take forward policy positions for Local Government New South Wales to our state and federal governments. One of the things that's always controversial is how many councillors go along to these particular conferences. Personally, I encourage every councillor to go along because there are untold learning opportunities at these conferences. You get to be exposed to a whole range of different ways of doing things. The presentations are great. The conversations at morning tea and lunchtime are great as well. So we had our decision last week about the recommendation for the number of councillors to go. And I say to everyone, if they can get away from work, you can take some annual leave from work, then go to it. So we've managed to get probably 8 at this stage, but probably 9 of our 10 councillors will be going to the conference in November. Now, of course, that always stirs up a bit of controversy, Rod, because you've always got people who are saying this is a junket and what a waste of money. We're talking about in the vicinity of $2,800 approximately by the time you take into account travel, accommodation and attending the conference. So that's how much it will cost per councillor. Now, keep in mind that councillors in Dubbo are paid $25,000, not a lot of money. They'll have to take some annual leave from their work, so they'll actually have to use up some of their annual leave. And then to go across to that, I think when you've got councillors managing a $250 million budget, a $3 billion asset base, spending $2,800 on helping them be better educated, more exposed to different ideas, and really just get as much information as possible, I see that as a fairly small amount. But as I said, people will always want to take the pot shot at councillors for supposedly wasting ratepayers' money in going to a conference.
So people like to complain at the moment, don't they?
You could say that, right. I won't be so bold as to say that. I'll always listen to feedback from ratepayers, but yeah, sometimes you feel a bit like that, don't you?
Well, people were even complaining about getting new amenities in Dubbo with a toilet because it was being a 3D toilet, but she's underway.
It's more than underway. It's basically done. It's been quite an incredible process. And you're right, I couldn't believe the amount of controversy it created when we knocked the old toilet block down. Now, it was about 50 plus years old. I haven't been able to find out the exact age, but over 50 years old. There was rust in the various beams holding up the roof. There was a bit of concrete cancer in the concrete. It looked like it was ready to be, well, a lot of maintenance spent on it, a lot of money on the maintenance, or knock it down, which we did. And it's interesting because most of the time, when you replace some council infrastructure, people are pretty happy with that. They often say, can you fix up that, replace that, build a new one of these? So he said, we'll do that, but we'll do it and we'll replace it with a 3D printed toilet. And that created a lot of controversy. Then once it started printing, I think some of that controversy went away because it was mesmerising. It was hypnotic to watch this 3D printer. To do a complete lap of the toilet block was about 6 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on the temperature. As it got warmer, they could print a little bit faster. So you sat there for, say, your 10 minutes and just watch this print head go around the entire toilet block and then go back and start the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. It was fascinating watching it. A total of about 14 hours of print time. They only turned up a week ago, Rod, set up their gantry, set up their infrastructure over the weekend. Monday morning, they pressed the print button. It printed away during the warmer hours of each day. Friday, they packed up and went home. So that toilet block is finished now. Now, when I say finished, you've still got to do the internal fit out. It didn't 3D print the toilets and the cubicles, etc. But it's basically been done. The outside of that has been done, ready to go, and now the internal fit out. Our big picture view here is that we've reserved 4 blocks of land on a future release for 3D printed housing. And we thought, in the meantime, while we're getting ready for that, a 3D printed toilet block might be a way for people to see the technology and see whether or not they'd like to see a 3D printed house. So it's been, I think, at this stage, really successful. The toilets have got the fit out to go, but I think people will go along and look at those toilet blocks as a bit of a tourist attraction going forward.
And what are they printed out of? Or it printed out of?
It's a concrete. Now, the company that had the contract that won the tender is a company called Contour 3D. And they told me that the secret with any company doing 3D printing is getting that mixture right. You want it fluid enough that can come out of the print head, but you want it solid enough that it sits there and stands up on its own, because there's no formwork that you put around it before you pour concrete like you normally would. So it just prints it as it goes. But their secret sauce they've got, they call Contourcrete, which is just a way of getting their name into the conversation. But essentially, you've got a concrete that comes out of the print head.
Wonderful. Amazing technology.
Indeed.
Now, there's a business opportunity at the Dubbo Regional Airport.
You're right, Rod. Just like any airport, Sydney Airport, you go in, there's lots of different shops there, lots of different things to do while you're waiting for your plane. We're not quite at that level yet at Dubbo Regional Airport, but we certainly want to have more businesses there. At the moment, we've got a good cafe. You can go and get a nice coffee, get something to eat before you board your plane. But we've got a small spot outside the secured area, and that particular shop there used to be used for a cafe, and that's no longer being used for a cafe. So we've got this opportunity where we can have, for the next 18 months, we're using that particular space to let people show off some of their products, some of their unique products to this area. Again, we want to encourage businesses to set up there and to basically use that to promote their products, to promote their business. So it's a bit different. It's free rent, so that sounds pretty exciting. We're going to take expressions of interest and we want to roll those over. So it's not just one business for the next 18 months. We want to have some businesses roll over, basically on a rotational basis. You want to do it for a minimum of 4 weeks and up to a maximum of 16 weeks, but that'll be a process we'd judge on seeing how many applications we receive there. Expressions of interest are open till the 7th of August, so put those expressions of interest in and say what you would like to do with that space. The great part about it is that numbers are finally going up in the right direction. Obviously, during the pandemic, we had very limited numbers going through the airport, but over the past 12 months, passenger numbers have been increasing with the highest level we've been hitting in the last couple of months since basically COVID-19 came along. So great opportunity for someone that wants to set up some form of business to sell their products there.
All right, and finally, what have we got to talk with you about? How about the Dubbo to host New South Wales Touch Junior State Cup for the next 3 years?
Very exciting news, Rod. We've won in our bid to host the next 3 New South Wales Touch Junior State Cup Northern Conferences. Now, this is on the back of us hosting the same event in February this year. That was after Port Macquarie had the previous 3-year bid, but it was rained out the first 2 years, so they took the 3rd year of that contract to somewhere else. We were lucky enough to get that particular one. And when I say lucky, our staff did a great job in presenting a fantastic bid for that particular one. At that tournament this year, we had 187 junior touch football teams from across the northern area of the state, including metro areas obviously as well. And that was a really good event. Our community opened their arms. They welcomed people along. Fantastic event. We estimated 7,000 visitors came during that time. $4 million injected into the economy. Obviously accommodation providers, but also hospitality, pubs, cafes, even retail get something out of that. The really good part about that is that sometimes organisations say to a council, how much money can you pay us to bring an event to your community? And councils almost end up in a bit of a bidding war, a silent auction, if you will, about hosting these various events. When we had the opportunity this year, we said, we don't want to pay you any money, but we'll make sure everything's absolutely spot on for you. And they were impressed with the quality of our grounds and the ground marking and all the work that was done at the Dubbo side for that particular tournament, and we went with that same approach this time. And having said that, I want to give a big thank you to the Dubbo Touch Association. They committed $15,000 cash to the tournament for this year, and they've done the same for the next 3 years because they're obviously very keen to see this tournament being held here in Dubbo. So great support from Dubbo Touch. Well done to them. Obviously, they've got a very good committee, a very good organisation there, even to have those funds to be able to commit, but that helps out, no doubt at all. But again, we're not putting cash from council into the New South Wales Touch Association. We're basically making sure everything's absolutely spot on for them and look forward to that happening. The first event for 2024 will be held on Friday through to Sunday, the 23rd through to the 25th of February next year. That will be a huge event for Dubbo, and then for the next 2 years after that.
Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickinson, an odd request now. Are you able to give us some poetry or a limerick in regards to a 3D toilet?
Why not? It's all new, so let's go with a bit of an ending that's a bit different. I wrote a quick limerick for you, Rod, about our 3D printed toilet. Here we go. A toilet block sprang from the pad. From a 3D printer, not too bad. With concrete precision, it met the vision. A restroom miracle was had.
I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Rod.
Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.